just to summarize on the issue of concepts, I've got to look at I've chosen one concept that I want to emphasize the importance of reading. You must read. Sometimes out of excitement, it might be something that you have been preparing for, and you think that is the one that is there. Yet, if you read thoroughly, you will see that it actually has been twisted a little bit. I've chosen an example of inflation. We know that it's a continuous and sustained increase in the general price levels. Now, it can be twisted, and then it's a continuous and sustained decrease in general price levels, which is no longer inflation, but which is now what? Deflation. So you need to read, is it saying increase? Is it saying decrease? Read the concept before you jump into choosing a concept. And please, when you are doing the 1.3, avoid examples. Avoid abbreviations, GDP, GNP, PPI. They are simply not marked. Now, let us now go to our second overview, which is our section B, lower order. It always starts with lower order questions. These are our low-hanging fruits. These are the answers that we can get by simply studying, even if it's just subheadings. Let me show you how. For example, it says here, 2 examples of leakages. By just looking at those leakages, the subheadings, they can give you the answers. Any 2 macroeconomic objectives, you can get them just by studying the subheadings of your macroeconomic objectives, which is maybe your full employment, your economic growth, just subheadings from that essay. Now, 2 features of business cycles. By just studying those those easy things, 2 features, 2 characteristics of business cycles, 2 tools of monetary policies, 2 tools of fiscal policies. These are very easy things. You are not forced to write a full sentence. That is why they actually carry 1 mark. You are not going to write a full sentence. You are just giving us that you know the concepts. Those are easy questions that you should actually aim to get. Now we have got what are known as medium order questions. These are the questions that says how, why, what. These are questions now that you really need to show. When you say how, it means that you need to explain how you do it. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you are maybe, you can say, we can have an example here. How are leading indicators used in forecasting business cycles? So with these questions, I normally say, picture a scale. You know, the old scale had 2 sides. So picture that scale. Put one concept on the other side, which is your left, and the other one on your right. So your leading indicators, how do they affect business cycles? So again, you need to know your concepts. What are these leading indicators? You need to know them. And what are these business cycles? How are they affecting each other? Knowing them will help you. For example, here we said to get an idea of what is to expect in the near future. We got that from the definition of leading indicators and used it to explain how it is used to forecast business cycles. So you need to know this. That's why I said we are not only limiting to the 40 marks in my previous presentation. So you really need to look at those questions. We also have got what are known as data response questions. Like I said, you are given a graph or something or information. Your first 2 answers might actually be something that is there in the extract. For example, we have got an action verb that says identify. To identify is to point to something and say, this is the thing. So we are going to point from this explanation or from this explanation that we have been given. So identify the exogenous reason. We should get it from this description that is given here. Then it says, provide a suitable label for A. Again, is there, the description has been given. So we need to identify, to get the description here from what we have learned. The remainder of the questions, we are not going to get them from the extract. We are now going to do our concept. We describe business cycle. We are now going to use our action verbs, which is your what. We are going to use your expression verbs, which is your explaining. So careful. The answers are not all coming from the extract that has been given. We are going to take them from what we already know. But as you can see, the first two questions had 1 mark, 1 mark. These are very simple questions. But starting from 4 to 3, they are now carrying 2 marks, which means you need to really explain. If it needs 2 points like 4 to 5, your 2 points should be well explained. We are not going to put phrases because those phrases are not going to explain and convince your marker to give you 2 marks. Now, from there, from data response questions, we go to what are known as paragraph questions, your 2.4 and your 2.5. I've put here for you the action verbs that are normally used. Give your own opinion. Critically discuss. Evaluate. What does evaluate mean? It means that you are going to give us both the positives and the negative. Critically evaluate. Draw a graph, which means you draw a graph and you explain using that graph that you have drawn. Explain. And so you don't just draw. It is saying draw and explain. Or it is saying with the aid, which means with the help of a graph. Whatever you explain there should be matching with what you have drawn in your graph. So these are some of them. Distinguish. I'm going to focus on distinguish just now. Briefly describe, explain, briefly discuss. Those are some of the action verbs that we get here. Now, on paragraph questions, there is something that I want to emphasize. It's the 4.4. It comes in various sections, but there is a popular one that is coming, is distinguish or differentiate. That action verb, we have been having it over the years, but there is a distinction that we are, or differentiation that we are supposed to do in order to get all the marks. We used to say just 2 points on each. It's no longer like that. You have to give a point on, like in this question, on endogenous and a point on exogenous. What you need to do here is to compare the same things. You compare apples with apples. You compare the same things at the same time. You don't compare something else and another thing in the same sentence. So you can write it, you can present your answer in a table form like this. You can present your answer in paragraphs. You start by writing endogenous, you write everything about endogenous. But when you go to exogenous, you have your first point on endogenous should be your first point, your first comparison should match with what you have said under endogenous. And you get 1 mark each, not 2 marks each. Now, for example, here we said these affect endogenous are factors that will affect the economy from within the market system. On the exogenous, these are factors that will affect the economy from the outside. We are looking at where these factors are coming from. The factors are coming from within the market system. The factors are coming from outside. You are not going to crisscross them and mention maybe the government should not intervene on the same point. Otherwise, if you do that, you lose marks because you are only going to get the first 4 marks on your first one. On the one that you did not match, you are not going to get any marks. When you say markets are inherently unstable, on the other side, you should also mention markets are inherently stable. So unstable on endogenous and stable on exogenous. Now, who are the economists behind? Is the Keynesians on endogenous? Is the monetarists on exogenous? Just something for you to remember the Keynesians, because sometimes they can confuse you. Endogenous, endo means inside. So we say for you to get inside, you need a key, which is your Keynesian. So these are the Keynesians that are economists. Then the other ones are the monetarists. So you keep on making sure that you are comparing the same things as you are moving. If you are giving examples, then the other side you should also give examples. Now, not all of them come in this format. Only when they use the word differentiate or distinguish, that's when we are supposed to do this. But if they say briefly describe and they give you maybe exchange rate stability and price stability, there's no need for you you can describe them anyhow. You don't necessarily have to match the points. So you describe your exchange rate stability and you move on to the next one. You explain your price stability. There is no need for you to match them. Now, another one is on graphs. Remember, I said they can say with the aid of a labeled diagram. That is where another problem is, labeling of graphs. Please make sure you label all the axes. And please make sure that when you have labeled the axis, whatever you have drawn in your graph is what you are explaining, not to explain something that you think or maybe that you read about. Use the graph that you have drawn. So much that when you explain, take for example the first point, at the tax rate of 0%, there is the 0%. The government revenue is also 0 because no one paid what? Tax. Now, if we say at the rate of 40%, we should also see the 40%. The tax revenue will be 250 billion. So when you are going down at 100%, that is the 100%. Again, there is no tax that is collected because no one wants to pay work for tax, so no one will be willing to work. So whatever you explain in your graph, it should match your explanation. Otherwise, you lose marks on your explanation. The marks are divided. In most cases, they are divided equally. 4 marks on your graph and 4 marks that will only be given for a graph that is explained using the graph that you have drawn, not the one that you saw somewhere. We also have got the 0.5 questions. The 0.5 questions, these are questions that we call higher order questions. You'll find that they require you to apply what you have been learning. I've chosen one here, which says, how can injections positively contribute to the economy? So there are 3 things that we need to take note of. It's injections and the economy. Now again, you need to know what are injections. You need to know what is the economy. So maybe your injections there is your government spending, is your export income, is your investment. Now, those 3, how do they positively, not negatively, but only positively contribute to the economy? Now, who is the economy? This question is one of those easiest 2.5 questions. Why do I say this is one of the easiest 2.54 or 0.5 questions? Because they are asking on the economy. The economy is quite wide. The economy includes all those participants that are there in your circular flow. It means that how does it affect, starting with you, the candidate that is writing, how are you affected by injections? Because you are part of households. It also goes on to the businesses. How are they affected by injections positively? It also goes to the foreign sector. How are they affected positively by these injections? The government itself, how is it affected by these injections. So it's quite wide, and we are only looking for 4. And if it is an additional part, we are only looking for 5. Now, if you look at all those participants, it's difficult for you not to come up with something that, starting with you as you are writing, how are you affected by injections? You should be getting something. For example, here, investments, there's going to be an increase in investments by the government. And how does it affect positively the economy? The government is going to get more tax revenue. So how does it also affect the government? The government is going to have more money to provide infrastructure. And also, how about yourselves? You are going to get employed. And then what is going to happen? You receive more income that you can use, and then you increase aggregate demand. So there's a lot to talk about. And also the money that we get for welfare payments, where does it come from? It comes from the taxes that the government has got from an increase in investments. So there's a lot that we can get there. So you can increase government expenditure. That will also improve the standard of living, especially for the poor. So there is a lot that we can engage in on this. You can also, now that you are writing, you are now a full economics learner. You have to go out of even that topic that you are looking at. So you can also even touch on exports. We are going to have more exports, which will result in the appreciation of the rand. So there's a lot that the GDP of the country is going to increase because there is growth in the economy. The balance of payments, because of more exports, we are going to close that the BOP deficit. So these are some of the questions that you can use even on your section C when you are doing your essay as the additional part. Now, with that, I know I'm not going to touch on the essays. I was going to touch on the essays, but I'm not going to touch on the essay. I was going to take an example on foreign exchange markets where we talk about discussing in detail the reasons for international trade. On that one, I was going to highlight something, not that it is the essay that is coming, but it's one of those easiest essays. So if it's not an essay, maybe it comes as a paragraph question. And then you have your demand reasons. You've got your supply reasons. Just in case, maybe, I'm not saying it's an essay, be careful. You need to make sure that you have got 13 marks that you get from demand reasons. You also have got 13 marks that you can get from the supply reasons. Don't focus on one side because you never know how it is going to be marked. Not that I'm saying it's an essay that is coming. So make sure you balance your demand reasons as well as your supply reasons. And now, if you are asked maybe to evaluate something, make sure that when you are evaluating, you are using both the positive and the negative. How is it going to affect the economy positively? How is it going to affect it's different from the one that we have looked at, which was only looking at positive. With this one that I chose here, evaluate, is you are free whether to use the positive or the negative. For example, you can talk about exports. If there is, how does that affect how does the effects of currency depreciation on the economy? So again, the economy is quite wide. How is it affected by currency depreciation when our rand is losing its value due to the forces of demand and supply? How does that affect the what? The economy. Then it means that our exports are going to be cheaper, our imports are going to be more expensive. Then you can look at other things that you can add there. So after talking about this, just hinting on a few things, I'm sure we are all ready for our paper come the 12th of November, and we are expecting bachelors, not just a pass, but bachelors. I wish you all the best. Enjoy your writing, count down, don't specialize, don't spot essays, do all the essays. They're going to help you. Thank you.